What's up, YouTube? Georgia Silver Hunter back, and today we will be doing a $500 quarter box hunt and album fill. As you can see, we're on episode number 14, and that equates to box number 14. I did open this at the bank to make sure we had good circulated quarters, which we do, so let's get this pushed back and jump into the hunt. So before we jump into these rolls, I did want to talk a little bit about the albums that we're filling. This is episode 14, like I said, and I've been keeping track of what we have left in the books. I'm not going to open them here at the beginning because it's just going to take a bit too much time. But the long story short is we've finished the first book, finished the second book. We're looking for 3 Denver minted coins from the State Quarters Deluxe album, and we're missing just 1 quarter, the 2011 Washington, minted out of Denver in the National Park book, and those will be filled. In the last week or so, I did pick up one of the American Women quarters from 2022 to 2025, so we will be pulling the best version of each of those and starting to fill out this album. And for those of you that are curious, because we're so close to being done, I've actually purchased a new set of books that we're going to start filling in. I don't know if I'm going to start in this particular video because I've got to get through these quarters and get them back to the bank, but I will be doing another series, and when they're done, I will put them in my store for sale or auction them off one night during a live stream. So if you do see this second set of books come out, I will let you know it's our Series 2 set of books, but I'm excited about starting to fill these in because we've got so little left to do in these. So now, let's open some rolls. So let's go ahead and do one roll together, just so we can get it open here and see if there's anything fancy in here. I do, in the description of all of my coin roll hunt videos, I've got a document listed down below there that you can click on. It's free to download and use for your own coin roll hunts. But it outlines everything that we look for, whether it's quarters, nickels, dimes, pennies, half dollars, whatever we're looking for. It's listed in that book as a checklist. But to cover it really quickly, we are looking for those 2019 and 2020 Ws. We are looking for silver, which would be your 1964 and earlier. And there's a whole smattering of errors, DDOs, and DDRs that we look for along the way as well. So, here we've got a man killer quarter. I don't have anything plugged down in the book, so I'll be pushing some of those aside to see what would go in the book. And there's a whole bunch of errors on each of the new 2022 quarters that I typically pull aside and look for. The other thing that we're looking for is San Francisco minted quarters, and they come in 2 varieties. One is the business strike, so they're just a really shiny quarter with a San Francisco mint mark on it. The other one is a proof, and it'll also have a San Francisco mint. Those can come in clad as well as silver. So we want to always look at that edge if we find a San Francisco minted one, because if it looks like this, it's got a copper edge, that means it's clad. If it's got a solid silver edge or gray edge, that means it's made of silver. And I think starting in 2019, those proof quarters were made in 3/9 fine silver instead of 90% silver. So there's actually just a little bit more silver in the newer quarters. Now, like this man killer is just gorgeous. That's a filly that'll probably just go down in the book. All right, well, I'm almost done with this one roll that we're doing live on camera, and then I'm going to jump off, and I will bring you guys in as we find things. As you can see, if I were just trying to cull some quarters to put in the second series, there's a whole bunch of stuff I could pull, but I don't think I'm going to do that in this particular hunt. Maybe we'll start those books in my next one. But if I do find really nice stuff, maybe I will pull it aside, and we'll just save it and plug it in the next video. All right, I'm going to jump into roll number 2. Hopefully, see you guys soon. So wow, this has been an uneventful box of quarters. We're on roll number 45, and we have our first, really our second find of the box. I'll show you our first in just a second. But we have a San Francisco business strike. I did see the reverse when I first flipped it over, but I've already forgotten what it is. So let's remind me and you, it is a 2018 Rhode Island, Block Island. This is probably the 8th one of these I've gotten in recent boxes. For some reason, the 2018s are plentiful here in the Atlanta area, even though the mintage on these is far less than the West Point minted quarters. Very little value in these, but they are cool to find because they're not supposed to be in circulation. So the first find I have, I just didn't bring in because I found so many of these and covered them in previous quarter videos. But this is the Drooling George with just a gigantic die chip there on the corner of his mouth. You can see it. It is huge. Normally you just get a little tiny piece of metal there, but that thing is enormous. And this is on the 2022 Philadelphia. This is the Maya Angelou. You can find this on pretty much all of the 2022 quarters. I haven't found it on any of the new 2023s yet, but I've found it pretty much across all the rest of them. And this is a giant chip. This is something I'll definitely hang on to. A lot of the smaller ones I do kick back. I'm probably going to prematurely jump into a wrap-up here because we may get through these last 5 rolls and not find anything, but I have pulled a bunch of really nice 2022 women's quarters that are going to go in the book that I showed you at the beginning, and I've pulled a handful of potential upgrades for some of the early books, the 65 through the, I think it's the 98. I have found 5 Philadelphia Bicentennials and 3 Denver. No DDO on those. And I know I said I wasn't going to cover the new books too much, but I have been pulling all of the 2010, 2011, and 2012 quarters that I will go ahead and fill up in the new book, only because they're the ones I've struggled with the most to finish off the first edition of the National Park book. There's a couple of 2009s mixed in here as well, because those in the State Quarter book are difficult to find. So I will start the new books from this little batch of quarters. So with all that said, I'm going to keep on hunting. Hopefully in these last 5 rolls, we have a little something to show for it. And if we don't, we'll just cut through. I probably won't cover all of this again if we don't find anything new, but we'll just cut straight to getting those books filled out. So hopefully we do. We still have 5.5 rolls to go. So fingers crossed. We're on roll 47, and this box just turned around and got really exciting for me because I have found a West Point minted quarter. I haven't seen one of these in months. Months and months. And I mean, this one is pretty well worn, pretty well circulated. You can see that W mint mark right there. These things were, when they first came out, really, really valuable. I think the American Memorial Park still does sell pretty well, 20, 30, 40 bucks, something like that. But most of these now have kind of settled into that $10 to $15 range, which is more than a silver quarter. So that's why you find coin roll hunters get really excited when they find these W's. Let's check it out, though. What do we have? We have a River of No Return. This is the Idaho 2019, and I want to say this is one of the other ones that's still fairly valuable. It may be a little bit higher than that $10 to $15 mark. I'll find out and put it here up on the screen, maybe over here to the right, just so you can see what the current comps are on eBay. But again, this one's pretty well circulated, so you wouldn't get top dollar for it, but pretty cool quarter. These I don't sell. I mean, I've sold some, but most of these I do flip up and keep in my own collection. So this box it's completely turned around. This one W made it all worth it. Well, it looks like the last 5 rolls did heat up a little bit. This is another very common error, but it's big enough that I wanted to bring you in. The 2021, typically on the Philadelphia crossing the Delawares, there's a pretty large die chip, or there's all sorts of them really, with small ones, medium-sized ones, big ones. This one's actually a pretty good size there on the top of the hat. The one you're really looking for is called the Full Crown, and it's where that die chip covers pretty much from the back of the hat to the front of the hat. It's just a gigantic die chip, and when those first came out, they were $150, $200 a pop. They've come way, way down, but typically the larger the little dollop of metal there, the more valuable they are. So something like this may be worth a couple, $4 or $5 on eBay, if you can find a buyer. This one's not in the best of condition, but it's not in terrible condition either. So we're going to throw that up on the board as a find. And the very last roll, I've already looked at the front when I picked it up, but it looked really shiny. Typically when they're this kind of finish, I have found they're Denver minted or they're San Francisco business strikes. And you know where this is going. This is the 2018 Wisconsin Apostle Island, and it is another San Francisco business strike. So here in the last 5 or 6 rolls, we've actually found a good bit of stuff. All right here. Got a couple quarters left to go. I'm going to go through them, and then we'll do just a very mini wrap-up and get to punching quarters down in the books. So for a quick wrap-up, we didn't find much more from a Bicentennial. I think we had one more Philadelphia. I brought you in for all of the finds there in the last 6 rolls, so I'm not going to recap those. But I did get a good smattering of the women's quarters in really, really good shape. Those will go in one set of women's books. And the next best set will go in another women's book I have for the Series 2. Over here, I just have a really nice 2000 that I'll start in the second set of books. And a couple of the 2009s. I don't remember if they're Phillies or Denvers, but I have 4 of, I think, the 5 2009 designs there. And like I said earlier in the video, all of the 2010s, 2011s, and 2012s that I could start in the new set of books, I did keep. And on the top row here, I've got Philadelphia's. And on the bottom, I've got Denver's. I'll plug those in and show you in the new books. I also kept a couple of really kind of bling-in 2019s and 2020s for the new books. I'm going to look to see if any of these other early year quarters upgrade our Series 1 books. Anything that doesn't, I'm going to go ahead and plug into the Series 2 books. So let me do that real quick, and we'll give you a real quick recap. But I don't think I found any one of the 3 or 4 quarters I needed to close out any of the books. So these are all just going to be book fillers in the Series 2 books, or they're going to be replacements for the Series 1 outside of the women's quarters. So let me get them plugged in, and we'll be right back. Okay, so let's show you the books really quickly, and as I was going through my finds, I did end up with that Guam D, so we did have one book filler in here in the Warman's State Quarter book, but I did want to start here by showing you the American Women's Quarter. I didn't realize I was going to need an obverse of the P and D, so I didn't keep a nice clean quarter to do that, so I'll do that in the next hunt. But I was able to get most of the 2022 quarters. I'm missing the Denver Sally Ride and the Denver Anime Wong. I'm sure I have found them in previous hunts, but they're really, really common to find, so I have no worries about getting them. And as you know, the 2023s are starting to show up in Atlanta already, so I'll be able to pick those up. And they don't even have names in them. They just say honoree 1, 2, and 3, so I'll have to write in the names as they come out. We know Bessie Coleman was the first one. So that's the state of the current women's book in my Series 1 albums. And I just want to show you this State Quarter album here. I was able to fill in, hopefully you can see it, that Guam. And the only thing we're missing now is the U.S. Virgin Islands in D. So my list is out of date. I must have found one of the other ones. The Americas Samoa I have found in the past and just didn't mark it off my list. So that has been found as well. So all I really need is that U.S. Virgin Islands. And then the Series 1 books will be complete, except for that 2011 Washington Quarter, and of course the women's albums. So the leftover coins that I had from the hunt, we've started the Series 2 books. I did keep some of the nicer women's quarters, so that second series book is already underway. And I just filled in just a couple of the other finds. Anything I replaced from the Series 1 books, I went ahead and slapped in here. So you see that I did replace a handful of those in the Series 1 books. So that is the 65 to 87. And then here we have the 88 and 89 that we filled in. And I suppose I could plug in, I've got a couple more bicentennial quarters I could plug in. I want to say in the State Quarter book, I did plug in that one really nice Connecticut quarter that I'd called out earlier. And I did plug in those couple of 2009s that I talked about. So when you look over here, we just got a couple of holes that we filled. These books are going to fill in really, really quickly when I focus on them in a future hunt. I think over here I just plugged in a couple quarters. We had a couple of 2010 and 2012 Denvers, along with a really nice Idaho, 2019 River of No Return from Denver. And then I had a bunch of the 2010, 11, and 12s from Philly, as well as a couple of 2019s and 20s that I'd pulled aside that looked really nice. So, like I said, this hunt really wasn't about these Series 2 books, but since I found some nice quarters, I figured I'd go ahead and plug those in. I think in my future hunt, I'll spend a little more time trying to pull all of the various quarters I need, and these are going to fill up pretty quickly. Within 2 or 3 boxes, we'll probably have 85-90% of these books filled, so it'll be pretty quick. So anyway, with that said, let's go ahead and we'll end it here. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I do have a playlist for all of my quarter hunt and album fills. You can go back and start with episode 1 if you like. But this has been a lot of fun. I do think if you're new to coin roll hunting, having these books to fill in makes the hunt a little bit more fun, because sometimes you have boxes that don't have a lot of errors. I mean, I literally had just 5 quarters that I pulled out of there that would have been typical finds if I wasn't doing an album fill. So the books are cheap, $4 or $5 on Amazon. Most local coin shops might maybe as high as $6 for the small books. The larger books, like the National Park Quarter book, can be as high as about 12 or 13. So if you've got small kids that are into the hobby, or you're just starting out, it's a cheap way to get some books and make these hunts a little bit more enjoyable. So with that said, if you enjoyed this one, drop down below, click that like button, leave me a comment. If you're new to the channel and want to catch all my coin roll hunts, make sure you click on that subscribe button, then click on that little bell and select all so you get notified each and every time I release a new video. And before I go, I like to thank my middle tier and top tier channel members. I only have one right now, but I like to include this little slide at the end to say thank you guys for being channel members. And I do for all levels of my memberships. I typically try to release my videos a couple hours to a day or so early so you can preview them before everybody else. So with that, you guys take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.